Billionaire's daughter hands an invitation to the waitress. What she says leaves her speechless. The diner was almost empty in the late afternoon. Just a few customers scattered among the red plastic tables, the low sound of the television in the corner, and the smell of coffee that never left the air. Matthew looked at the menu for the third time, even though he already knew he would order the same thing as always: a plain hamburger and French fries for him, nuggets for Chloe. "Daddy, can I have a soda?" The little girl's voice broke the silence. "You can, princess." He didn't even look at her properly. His eyes remained lost on some point on the wall, as if searching for something they would never find. Chloe swung her little legs in the high chair, watching her father with her big blue eyes. 5 years was too young to understand many things, but old enough to notice when something was wrong. And something had been wrong with Daddy for a long time. "Sorry for the wait." The waitress approached with a tired smile. She was young, with blonde hair tied in a simple ponytail, wearing a yellow uniform that had seen better days. "What can I get for you today?" Matthew slowly raised his head. "A plain hamburger, fries, and..." He stopped mid-sentence as if he had forgotten where he was. "And nuggets for the little one," Jessica finished, looking at Chloe. "I saw you guys here last week, right? You're very beautiful, you know that." Chloe smiled but continued to watch her father. He had gone back to staring into space. His shoulders slumped as if carrying an invisible weight. "And to drink? A Coke for her, coffee for me." The answer came automatically, without emotion. Jessica wrote everything down and walked away. Chloe sat quietly for a few minutes, swinging her legs and biting her lower lip. Daddy was making that face again. The same face he made when he looked at Mommy's pictures in secret. In the little pink backpack next to her chair, there was a folded piece of colored paper. The invitation to the party at school. Chloe had kept it there for 3 days, without the courage to show it to her dad. She knew he would go, just as he always went to everything she needed. But she also knew he would be sad seeing all the other moms. "Daddy? Are you sad?" Matthew blinked as if he had just woken up. He looked at his daughter and forced a smile. "No, princess. Daddy is just tired from work." But Chloe was no fool. She knew all of her father's expressions, every tone of voice, every sigh, and that wasn't tiredness. It was the same sadness she saw in his eyes every night when he thought she was asleep. The food arrived in a few minutes. Jessica placed the plates on the table carefully, noticing how the man barely touched his hamburger while the little girl ate her nuggets in silence. "Is everything okay with the food?" she asked. "It's great, thank you." Matthew took a small bite and got lost in his own thoughts again. Chloe chewed slowly, planning. She looked at her dad, then at the pretty lady who was waiting on other tables. She seemed kind, and she was always smiling, even when she looked tired. Maybe. The girl discreetly took the invitation from her backpack and hid it under her leg. She waited for the right moment. "Daddy, can I go to the bathroom?" "You can, but be careful not to." I know. Don't take too long." Chloe got down from the chair, held the folded paper in her small hand, and walked in the direction she had seen the waitress go. Jessica was at the counter, organizing some papers, when she felt a tug on the hem of her uniform. She looked down and met Chloe's blue eyes. "Hi, sweetie." "Miss..." Chloe looked around, making sure Matthew wasn't watching. He was still in the same position, distractedly poking at his French fries. "Jessica. You can call me Jessica." "Jessica." The girl repeated the name slowly, as if testing it. She took a deep breath and held out the folded paper. "This is for you." Jessica took the invitation and opened it. It was a colorful piece of paper from school, decorated with drawings of flowers and hearts. "Mother's Day party, Maple Street School, Friday, 3 p.m. "It's an invitation to the party at my school," Chloe said softly, as if it were a big secret. "On Friday." Jessica looked at the invitation, then at the little girl. "Sweetheart, but this is for..." "My dad is sad," Chloe interrupted, her blue eyes shining with determination. "Can you go to the party as my mommy?" The question was so direct, so full of hope, that Jessica was speechless for a moment. She looked at the invitation in her hands, then at the little girl, then at Matthew, who was still lost in his thoughts. "Honey, Mommy went to heaven a long time ago, Chloe explained quickly, as if she needed to say everything before she lost her courage. And Daddy is always sad. He thinks I don't see it, but I do. Jessica knelt to be at the girl's eye level, still holding the invitation. And you think that if I go to the party, your dad will be less sad? Chloe nodded emphatically. You're pretty like Mommy was, and you're kind. All my friends are bringing their moms, and I wanted to have a mommy too, just for the party. Jessica's heart raced. This situation was completely unexpected. She barely knew this man and his daughter, but there was something in the way Chloe looked at her. A need that went beyond the simple desire not to be alone at the party. Please? Chloe's eyes filled with tears that she tried to hold back. Just this once. I promise I'll be a very good girl. Jessica felt her heart ache. She looked again at Matthew, who was starting to look around for his daughter. You need to go back to your daddy. He's looking for you. But will you go? To the party? The question was filled with anxiety and hope. Jessica looked into those blue eyes so full of expectation and felt something stir in her chest. It had been a long time since someone had truly needed her. A long time since she had felt important to someone. I'll think about it, okay? I'll keep the invitation. Chloe's face transformed. A huge smile took over her little face, and she clapped her hands softly so as not to draw attention. Really? You'll really think about it? Really? But now you need to go back quickly. Chloe nodded and prepared to run back, but she stopped and looked at Jessica one more time. Jessica? Yes? Thank you for listening. The girl gave a shy smile and ran back to the table. Jessica stood still for a moment, looking at the invitation in her hands. She watched Chloe sit down and start eating her nuggets again, but now with a completely different energy. Matthew noticed the change immediately. Where did you go, Princess? He seemed more alert now, intrigued by the sparkle in his daughter's eyes. You took longer than usual. I went to the bathroom, Daddy, like you said. Chloe tried to sound casual, but she couldn't hide her smile. And why do you have that look like you're up to something? Matthew tilted his head, studying his daughter's expression. Chloe. I didn't do anything, Daddy, she giggled. Can I have dessert? Matthew watched her for a few more seconds. There was something different about his daughter, a joy he hadn't seen in a long time. The last time he had seen that sparkle in her eyes was, he couldn't even remember when. What do you want? Chocolate ice cream. With topping. As Matthew called Jessica over to order dessert, Chloe glanced discreetly at the waitress. Jessica was still holding the invitation, seemingly lost in thought. The girl smiled to herself. She had done her part. Now, all that was left was to wait and hope that the pretty lady would say yes. A 5-year-old girl had just planted a seed that could change everything. Jessica folded the invitation carefully and put it in her uniform pocket, not knowing that this little piece of colored paper was about to transform the lives of 3 people forever. Maple Street School was decorated with colorful balloons and posters made by the children. It was Friday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the schoolyard was buzzing with elegant mothers, children running from one side to the other, and a few fathers who clearly felt out of place amidst so much femininity. Matthew adjusted his tie for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. He hadn't worn a suit in months, but thought the occasion deserved it. Chloe was by his side, beautiful in her little pink dress with white flowers. She shifted from one foot to the other, her blue eyes scanning the school entrance every minute. Daddy, you look handsome. Chloe smiled, but Matthew could see the anxiety behind her smile. Thank you, Princess. You look beautiful too. He bent down to fix a blonde strand of hair that had escaped from the pink bow. Ready for the party? Chloe nodded, but kept looking at the entrance. Matthew followed her gaze, confused. The girl seemed to be waiting for someone. But who? It was always just the 2 of them at this kind of event. Chloe, is everything okay? Yes, Daddy. She took his hand. Shall we go in? They walked through the schoolyard, greeting a few mothers Matthew knew from other school events. Mrs. Peterson, Emma's mom, Mrs. Williams, who worked at the bank. Matthew noticed how people's eyes moved from him to Chloe with that disguised look of pity he knew so well. Mr. Johnson. Teacher Sarah approached with a warm smile. It's so good to see you. And Chloe, you look so lovely. Thank you, Ms. Sarah. Chloe did a little curtsy. The performances will start in a few minutes. Chloe, your friends are waiting for you at the front. Chloe looked at her father, then at the school entrance one more time. Hi, can I wait a little longer? Matthew frowned. Wait for what, princess? Before she could answer, a murmur spread through the schoolyard. Some mothers turned their heads, curious. Matthew turned too, and felt his breath catch for a moment. Jessica was standing at the entrance, looking for someone. She wore a simple black dress that highlighted her blonde hair, which was loose on her shoulders. She looked different without the yellow diner uniform, more elegant, more present. She was holding a small black purse and looked nervous. It's Jessica, Chloe shouted and ran off before Matthew could say anything. He stood frozen, watching his daughter run towards the waitress from the diner. What was Jessica doing here? How did she know about the party? Jessica, you came! Chloe threw herself into the woman's arms, who picked her up with a radiant smile. Of course I came. I promised I'd think about it, remember? Jessica kissed the top of the girl's head. You look beautiful, Chloe. You look beautiful too, very pretty. Chloe pulled back a little to admire Jessica better. Matthew approached slowly, still trying to process what was happening. Some mothers around them were watching with curiosity. Jessica saw him coming and smiled, but there was nervousness in her green eyes. Matthew, she greeted him with a nod. Jessica. He stopped a few steps away. How did you know about the party? Jessica looked at Chloe, who was clinging to her hand, beaming with happiness. Your daughter invited me. What do you mean, she invited you? Matthew looked at Chloe, who suddenly became very interested in her own shoes. At the diner, on Wednesday, she gave me the school invitation and asked if I could come as... Jessica hesitated. As my mommy, Chloe completed without embarrassment, lifting her head with determination. I asked her to come as my mommy to the party. The schoolyard around them seemed to fall silent. Matthew felt the world spin. You did that? I did. Chloe let go of Jessica's hand and ran to her father. You were sad, Daddy, and I thought if Jessica came, you would be happy again. Matthew knelt down to his daughter's level, his hands trembling. He could feel the curious stares of the other families. So, Chloe, you can't just go around inviting people without telling me first. But Daddy, no, Princess, that's not something you do. He looked at Jessica. Jessica, I'm so sorry. She's just a child. She doesn't understand that this could be awkward. Matthew? Jessica approached and knelt down too. It's okay. I came because I wanted to. Chloe looked between the two adults, her blue eyes filling with tears. Are you fighting because of me? We're not fighting, sweetie. Jessica reached out and gently touched the girl's face. Your dad was just surprised. Matthew watched the interaction between them and felt something stir in his chest. It had been a long time since he had seen Chloe react so naturally to a motherly figure. Daddy, Chloe held his hand, can Jessica stay? Please? Matthew looked at Jessica, who was waiting for his answer. If she wants to stay, she can stay. Chloe's face lit up. She jumped up and clapped her hands, then ran to hug Jessica again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jessica smiled and looked at Matthew over the girl's head. Thank you. Teacher Sarah approached, curious. Mr. Johnson, aren't you going to introduce me to your companion? Sarah, this is Jessica. Jessica, this is Ms. Sarah. It's a pleasure to meet you. Jessica extended her hand. Chloe talks a lot about you. How did you two meet? Sarah asked. Jessica works at the diner where Chloe and I sometimes have dinner. Matthew answered quickly. How interesting. Sarah smiled. Well, the performances are about to start. Chloe, sweetie, you need to go get in position with your class. Chloe ran to join the other children, waving at Matthew and Jessica. The performances began a few minutes later. The children arranged themselves in rows on the small stage, each one looking for their parents in the audience of white plastic chairs. Chloe waved enthusiastically at Matthew and Jessica, who were sitting side by side. She's happy, Jessica commented softly. Yes, Matthew nodded. I haven't seen her like this in a long time. The children began to sing a song about mother's love. Matthew could feel Jessica's presence beside him, the soft perfume she wore, the way she smiled when Chloe waved. "So why did you come?" he asked suddenly. Jessica glanced at him. "Because she asked me to." "It's more than that." "No," Jessica admitted. "It's not just that." She was quiet for a moment. "I lost my mom a few months ago. Cancer. I don't have any family left," Jessica said softly. "And when your daughter asked me to come, I felt it was important for her. And for me too. It's been a while since I felt needed by someone." Matthew turned to look at her. There was a deep sadness in her eyes that he recognized well. "I'm sorry about your mother." "Thank you." Jessica smiled sadly. She would have loved to meet Chloe. She always said that honest children are rare. She is honest. Sometimes too honest. Like when she invites strangers to school parties. Matthew chuckled, the first genuine laugh Jessica had heard from him, especially at those times. The song ended and the children took a bow. The parents applauded enthusiastically. "Do you have any other family?" Jessica asked. "My parents live out in the country. They come to visit now and then." Matthew shifted in his chair. "And you, besides your mother?" "It was just her. My dad died when I was a teenager. Mom worked her whole life to raise me alone." The performance ended with applause. Chloe ran to them, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Did you see how I sang?" She jumped into Matthew's lap, then reached her arms out to Jessica as well. "You were perfect, sweetie." Jessica hugged her tightly. "A true artist. Let's go eat cake. Mrs. Peterson made chocolate cake." Matthew and Jessica followed her towards the dessert table. Several mothers approached to greet Jessica, curious about who Matthew's companion was. "So you're Jessica?" Mrs. Peterson smiled warmly. "Chloe couldn't stop talking about you last week." "She did." Jessica looked at Chloe. "Oh, yes. Jessica is so pretty. Jessica is so nice." Mrs. Peterson laughed. "I thought you had known each other for longer. We met a few weeks ago." "How romantic." Mrs. Williams joined the conversation. "Fate at work." Jessica blushed. "It's not quite like that. Leave Jessica alone." Matthew approached with 2 cups of juice. "You're going to scare her off." The women laughed and moved away. "Sorry about that," Matthew murmured. "They're just curious." For the rest of the party, Matthew watched how Jessica interacted with Chloe. She was affectionate without being intrusive, listened attentively when the girl spoke, and helped her clean chocolate off her dress. "Jessica, Daddy!" Chloe ran up to them. "Can we take a picture together?" Emma was beside her with her mother, who was holding a phone. What a lovely idea." Mrs. Peterson smiled. "Come here, I'll take a picture of you 3. Jessica hesitated, looking to Matthew for approval. He nodded. "Come on, Jessica." Chloe pulled her hand. They stood in front of the decorated tree. Chloe stood in the middle, holding both adults' hands. Matthew discreetly placed his hand on Jessica's shoulder. "They're perfect." Mrs. Peterson took several photos. "You make such a beautiful family." The comment created a moment of silence. Jessica blushed, and Matthew cleared his throat softly. "Thank you for the pictures." "My pleasure." Mrs. Peterson winked. "Chloe, your new mommy is very pretty." "She's not," Matthew started, but Chloe interrupted him. "Thank you. I think she's pretty too." The party was ending. Parents began to say their goodbyes. Chloe played with a few friends for the last few minutes. Matthew approached Jessica, who was watching the children play. "Thank you." "For what?" "For coming, for making her happy." He looked at Chloe. "I haven't heard her laugh like that in a long time." "Since your wife passed away." Matthew nodded. "How did you know?" "Chloe told me, at the diner. It's been 3 years. It must be hard." "It was. Still is, sometimes." Matthew ran a hand through his hair. "But today was different. A good different." Jessica smiled. "She's a special girl, Matthew." "She is." Matthew paused. "Jessica, would you like to have coffee with us sometime? A proper thank you for today." Jessica felt her heart race. "I would like that very much." "Daddy!" "Jessica!" Chloe ran up to them, out of breath. "Are we leaving now?" "We are, Princess." Chloe's face fell. "Can't Jessica come with us?" Jessica knelt down. "Not today, sweetie." But your dad invited me to have coffee with you guys one day. Really? Chloe's eyes sparkled. When? Matthew laughed. Easy, princess. We'll talk about it at home. They walked together to the gate. Jessica said goodbye with a kiss on Chloe's forehead and a handshake for Matthew. Thank you for letting me be part of the party. Thank you for coming, Matthew replied. It meant a lot. Jessica smiled and waved, walking in the opposite direction. In the car, Matthew watched Chloe in the rearview mirror. She was smiling to herself. Did you enjoy the party, princess? I loved it. It was the best school party of my whole life. Was it really? It was, because for the first time, I had a mommy just like the other girls, Chloe said naturally. Jessica is really nice, isn't she, Daddy? Matthew felt his chest tighten. Yes, she is. Did you like her? Matthew thought for a moment. I did. Can she be our friend? Yes, she can, Chloe. Chloe smiled, satisfied. A few minutes later, she was fast asleep in the back seat, still with a smile on her lips. Matthew watched his daughter in the rearview mirror and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. It had been 3 years since Sarah had died, and he had gotten used to the idea that it would always be just him and Chloe. But seeing his daughter's happiness today, the natural way she had connected with Jessica, maybe it wouldn't always be just the two of them. Maybe there was room for someone else. Jessica walked through the neighborhood streets, still processing everything that had happened. The afternoon at the party echoed in her mind. Chloe's smiles, the easy conversation with Matthew, the feeling of belonging. It had been a long time since she had felt part of something bigger than herself. Since her mother had died, the days passed identical and empty. But today had been different. Seeing the genuine joy in Chloe's eyes, feeling that her presence truly mattered, talking with Matthew so naturally. Jessica stopped in front of a shop window and looked at her reflection. She was still wearing the black party dress, but there was something different in her eyes, a light that wasn't there that morning. Something had changed today. She could feel the shift in her chest, in the way she looked towards the future. For the first time in months, Jessica felt hopeful. On the Monday following the party, Matthew dropped Chloe off at school as he always did. But instead of heading straight to work, he took a different route. Without quite realizing how cute, he found himself parked in front of the diner where Jessica worked. He sat in the car for a few minutes, watching the activity through the window. It was mid-morning, a quieter time. Just a few customers scattered among the usual red tables. Jessica was at the counter, organizing some papers, her blonde hair tied in a simple ponytail. Matthew took a deep breath and went inside. Matthew, Jessica looked up, surprised. Is everything okay? Chloe isn't with you. I just dropped her off at school. He approached the counter, his hands in his pockets. I thought I'd grab a quick coffee before work. Jessica smiled. Of course. The usual. The usual. She moved through the diner efficiently, preparing the coffee while Matthew sat on one of the high stools at the counter. The place was quiet, just the low sound of the television and the noise of the coffee machine. Here you go. Jessica placed the cup in front of him. Thanks. Matthew took a sip, feeling the hot liquid go down his throat. Jessica, about the party on Friday. Matthew, you don't have to. Yes, I do. He looked at her directly. I want to thank you again. I don't know how, but you managed to make my daughter happier than she's been in a long time. Jessica leaned on the counter, studying his face. And you? How did you feel? The question caught Matthew by surprise. No one had asked him how he felt in a long time. He hesitated. It was strange at first, but then it was good to have someone there. It was good not to be alone in that kind of situation. Jessica nodded understandingly. I imagine it must be difficult, those school parties. It is, Matthew admitted. All those complete families, all those mothers. Chloe never complains, Guy, but I know she misses it, and I feel guilty for not being enough for her. Matthew, Jessica said softly, you're an incredible father. Anyone can see that. He smiled for the first time since he had entered the diner. Thank you for saying that. They were silent for a few minutes, Matthew drinking his coffee, Jessica distractedly wiping the counter. There was something comfortable in that silence, something Matthew hadn't felt in a long time. I have to get to work, he said finally, finishing his coffee. Of course. Jessica took the empty cup. See you later? See you later? On Tuesday, Matthew showed up again, same time, same excuse of a quick coffee. But this time he stayed a little longer, talking about simple things, the weather, the traffic, how Chloe had enjoyed dinner the night before. On Wednesday, he arrived with a question about Chloe's school. Jessica had attended the same school years ago and was able to give him some tips about the teachers. On Thursday, Matthew realized he was no longer using the coffee as an excuse. He simply stopped at the diner because he wanted to be there, talking with Jessica. Have you always worked here? He asked, watching her clean a nearby table. For about 2 years, Jessica returned to behind the counter. I started when my mother got sick. I needed a job with flexible hours so I could take care of her. And before that, I worked in an office. Nothing very exciting, Jessica smiled. And you, have you always been... What is it you do, anyway? Matthew laughed. Civil engineer. I work at a small construction firm. We mostly do residential houses. It's nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills. It must be interesting. Building things, seeing them come off the paper. It is, sometimes. Matthew fiddled with the handle of his cup, especially when I see families moving into the houses I help design. It's a good feeling. Jessica leaned on the counter again, her chin in her hand. Chloe must be proud of her dad. She says she is, Matthew smiled. The other day she told her teacher that her dad makes houses appear out of the ground. I thought it was funny. She has a very special way of seeing things. She really does. Matthew's smile softened. Sometimes I wonder how she manages to be so positive, after everything that's happened. Jessica was quiet for a moment. Kids are more resilient than we think, and she has you. That makes all the difference. Matthew looked at her, something stirring in his chest. I can't explain it, but I feel comfortable talking to you. Jessica felt her face warm up. I like talking to you too. They looked at each other for a few seconds, until another customer entered the diner, breaking the moment. I have to go. Matthew stood up, leaving money for the coffee on the counter. See you tomorrow? See you tomorrow. On Friday, Matthew arrived later than usual. The diner was busier. It was lunchtime. Jessica was waiting on several tables, but she waved at him when she saw him come in. He sat at a table in the corner, waiting for her to have a free moment. He watched Jessica work, the efficient way she moved between tables, the genuine smile she gave to each customer, the patience with which she served even the most difficult ones. Sorry for the delay. Jessica approached his table 20 minutes later. Busy day. I saw, Matthew smiled, you're very good at what you do. Thank you. Jessica sat in the chair across from him for a few minutes. So, how was your week? Good. Chloe won't stop talking about the party on Monday. She loved having you there. And you? Matthew hesitated for only a second. I loved having you there too. Jessica smiled, but before she could reply, another customer called for her. I'll be right back. She got up and went to serve them. Matthew watched her once more. There was something about Jessica that put him at ease, that made him feel more like himself than he had in a very long time. She didn't try to impress him or be someone she wasn't. She was simply Jessica, honest, kind, present. When she returned to the table, he had already made a decision. Jessica, yes. How about you have dinner with us tomorrow? At home. Nothing fancy, just a simple dinner. Chloe would love to have you and I would too. Jessica blinked, surprised. Matthew, are you sure? I am, he said, more confident than he had felt in a long time. If you want to, of course. Jessica smiled, and Matthew realized it was the most beautiful smile he had ever seen. I would like that very much. Great. Matthew stood up, leaving payment on the table. Saturday at 7. Saturday at 7. He walked to the door but turned before leaving. Jessica. Yes. Thank you for everything. She nodded, still smiling, and Matthew left the diner with a strange feeling in his chest. A good feeling. A feeling that maybe, for the first time in 3 years, he was doing something right. That night, as he was tucking Chloe into bed, She asked, "Daddy, you've been different this week." "Different how?" "Happier." Chloe looked at him with her curious blue eyes. "Is it because of Jessica?" Matthew considered lying, making up some excuse. But looking at his daughter, he decided on honesty. "Maybe it is, Princess." Chloe smiled, satisfied. "I knew you would like each other." "You knew." "I knew." "You need someone to take care of you too, Daddy." Matthew felt his chest tighten with the simple wisdom of his 5-year-old daughter. "And you? How do you feel about it?" Chloe didn't hesitate. "Happy." "Very happy." He kissed her forehead and turned off the light, but stood at the door for a few minutes, watching her fall asleep. Maybe Chloe was right. Maybe he did need someone to take care of him too, and maybe, just maybe, Jessica was the right person. For the first time in a long time, Matthew went to sleep feeling hopeful about the future. It was Tuesday morning when Chloe made the first observation. Matthew was in the kitchen preparing breakfast, quietly whistling a tune he didn't even know where it came from. Golden toast, scrambled eggs, orange juice, all arranged on the small kitchen table as he always did. "Daddy?" Chloe's voice came from the top of the stairs. "Coming down, Princess?" "Breakfast is ready." She appeared a few minutes later, still in her pajamas, her blonde hair messy from sleep, but her blue eyes were wide awake, watching her father with a curiosity that Matthew didn't notice at first. "Good morning, sleepyhead." He kissed the top of her head and helped her into her chair. "Did you sleep well?" "I did." Chloe picked up a piece of toast and chewed slowly, her eyes still fixed on her father. "Daddy?" "You're different." Matthew stopped with his coffee cup halfway to his mouth. "Different how?" Chloe tilted her head, thoughtful. It was a funny expression on a 5-year-old girl, too serious for her age, as if she were analyzing something very important. "You're like how I get when I get a birthday present." Matthew laughed. "And how do you get when you get a birthday present?" "Happy on the inside," Chloe smiled. "Sighed with that good feeling in my tummy." "Is that right?" Matthew sat in the chair next to her, intrigued. "And what makes you think I'm like that?" "You're singing in the morning." Chloe counted on her fingers. "You made pancakes yesterday and it wasn't Sunday. And you don't look at Mommy's pictures with a sad face anymore." The last observation made Matthew choke slightly on his coffee. He hadn't realized that Chloe noticed when he looked at Sarah's photos. "Chloe, you're happier since you met Jessica," she said with the typical naturalness of children, as if she were commenting on the weather. Matthew felt his face heat up. "Princess, Is that why you go to the diner every day now?" "I don't go every day." Chloe looked at him with an expression that clearly said, "I wasn't born yesterday, Daddy." "You do too. Emma told me her mum saw you there on Monday, Tuesday, and yesterday." Matthew ran a hand through his hair, trying to find an answer. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that yes, he was feeling different, lighter, more alive? How do you explain that Jessica had awakened something in him that he thought had died along with Sarah? "It's complicated, Chloe." "No, it's not." Chloe shook her head. "You like Jessica. She's pretty and kind, and she makes you laugh. It's simple." The simplicity of a child's logic left Matthew speechless. Maybe Chloe was right. Maybe it wasn't as complicated as he was making it seem. "And you?" he asked carefully. "How do you feel about it?" Chloe didn't hesitate for a second. "Happy, very, very happy." She jumped out of her chair and hugged her father. "So I like it when you're happy, Daddy." Matthew hugged her tightly, feeling his chest swell with love for this extraordinary little girl. "I like it when you're happy too, Princess." "So you're both happy, and I'm happy too," Chloe giggled. "It's perfect." Matthew couldn't help but smile. If only the adult world were as simple as Chloe's world. That afternoon, after picking up Chloe from school, Matthew suggested they stop by the diner for a snack. "Can I order a chocolate milkshake?" Chloe asked excitedly. "You can, but only if you promise to eat your dinner properly tonight." "I promise." The diner was moderately full, a few tables occupied, the typical mid-afternoon rush. Jessica was waiting on a table when they walked in, but she waved with a smile when she saw them. "Our favorite customers." She approached after a few minutes. "How are you two?" Good, Chloe answered before her dad could. Jessica, I made something for you. You did. Jessica knelt to be at the girl's eye level. What is it? Chloe looked at Matthew, who nodded encouragingly. The girl then opened her little pink backpack and took out a carefully folded piece of paper. It's a drawing. She handed it to Jessica, her cheeks slightly pink with shyness. I made it last night. Jessica slowly unfolded the paper, and Matthew could see her face light up when she saw the contents. It was a simple drawing, typical of a 5-year-old, made with crayons. In the center of the sheet was a huge yellow sun, taking up almost a quarter of the paper. Below it, a red flower with a crooked green stem, and next to it, a small figure, clearly a girl, wearing a pink dress, with long blonde hair and a smile drawn with simple but expressive lines. In the figure's small hand, a blue circle connected by a line, a balloon. Chloe. Jessica sighed, her eyes shining. It's beautiful, but who is this beautiful girl in the drawing? Chloe smiled, shifting from one foot to the other. It's me, Happy. The answer was said with such naturalness, such purity, that Jessica felt her eyes well up with tears. Matthews, who had remained silent observing the interaction, felt his heart ache with emotion. You, Happy? Jessica repeated softly, gently touching the girl's face. This is the most beautiful gift I've ever received. You know that. Really? Really? Jessica looked at the drawing again. How can I ask why you gave me this drawing? Chloe thought for a moment, biting her lower lip as she always did when she was concentrating. Because you made Daddy happy too, she said finally. And when Daddy is happy, I get even happier. Then I become just like in the drawing. Jessica looked at Matthew, who was standing a few steps back, watching the whole scene with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. There was love there, a lot of love for his daughter, but also something more. Something that made her heart race. Jessica, Chloe brought her attention back. So how did you put it on your fridge? On my fridge. It's the special place for important drawings, Chloe explained seriously. Mommy always put my drawings on the fridge when they were special. The comment made the atmosphere tense for a moment. Matthew approached, placing a hand on his daughter's shoulder. Chloe? It's okay, Jessica said quickly, smiling at the girl. I will put it on the fridge, in a place of honor. And every time I look at it, I'll remember a happy Chloe. Chloe clapped her hands, radiant. Yay! Can I order my milkshake now? Jessica laughed. Of course, you can. Chocolate milkshake, right? With whipped cream. With whipped cream, Jessica confirmed, standing up. She carefully tucked the drawing into her uniform pocket. And for you, Matthew. Coffee, please. While Jessica went to prepare the orders, Matthew and Chloe sat at a table near the counter. Chloe was visibly happy, swinging her little legs in the chair and talking about her day at school. Matthew listened attentively, but part of his mind was on the drawing Jessica had just received. It's me, Happy. Chloe's words echoed in his head. When was the last time his daughter had described herself that way? When was the last time she had felt completely, genuinely happy? Here you are. Jessica returned with Chloe's milkshake, a tall glass with whipped cream and a cherry on top, and Matthew's coffee. Thank you. Chloe immediately started drinking the milkshake, leaving a whipped cream mustache on her upper lip. Jessica sat with them for a few minutes, taking advantage of a lull in the diner's rush. Chloe told me you're an artist in your spare time, she said, looking at Matthew with a playful smile. Matthew frowned, confused. An artist. She said you make houses appear out of the ground, that it's almost like magic. Matthew laughed, looking at his daughter. She has a very vivid imagination. It's not imagination, Chloe protested, the milkshake forgotten for a moment. You draw it on paper, and then the house appears for real. If that's not magic, I don't know what is. Jessica and Matthew exchanged glances and laughed together. There was something about the way Chloe saw the world, so simple, so pure, that made everything seem possible. She has a point, Jessica said. It must be amazing to see something you created become real. It is, Matthew admitted, especially when I see the families moving in. I always think that I helped create a home for them. A home, Jessica repeated softly. Finance a beautiful word. It is. Matthew looked at her directly. It's about the people inside the house, not the house itself. There was a moment of silence, heavy with meaning. Chloe, oblivious to the subtleties of adult conversation, had turned her attention back to the milkshake. Jessica, a customer called from the other side of the diner. "Say coming." She stood up, but before she left, she lightly touched Matthew's shoulder. "Thank you for Chloe's drawing. Really, it meant a lot." "She's liked you since the first day," Matthew said softly. "She has a good instinct for people." "And you?" Jessica asked, almost whispering. "Fairs, what's your instinct about me?" Matthew looked at her for a long moment before answering. "My instinct tells me you're exactly who you appear to be. Good, honest, genuine. And that's rare these days." Jessica smiled, feeling her cheeks warm up. "Thank you." She moved away to serve the customer, and Matthew watched her work. There was a natural grace in the way she moved, an endless patience with every person she served. She treated everyone, from the hurried executive to the elderly woman who took a long time to decide on her order, with the same kindness. "Daddy?" Chloe brought him back to reality. "You're looking at Jessica with that face." "What face?" Chloe made an exaggerated expression, her eyes wide and a goofy smile on her face. Matthew laughed, recognizing the imitation. "I'm not making that face." "You are too." Chloe drank some more of her milkshake. "But it's okay, I like it when you look at people like that. It means you really like them." Matthew was once again impressed by his daughter's perception. "You're very smart, you know that." "I know," Chloe shrugged, as if it were obvious. "That's why I knew you would like each other." "You did?" "I did. You both get the same look on your faces when you're together." "What look?" "The happy on the inside look." Chloe finished her milkshake and wiped her mouth with a napkin. "Just like me in the drawing." Matthew looked at his daughter, really looked. Her blue eyes sparkled in a way he hadn't seen in a long time. There was a lightness to her shoulders, a smile that seemed permanently on her lips. She was happy, truly, completely happy, and Matthew realized that he was too. For the first time in 3 years, he was allowing himself to be happy again, and it had all started with a 5-year-old girl inviting a stranger to a school party. Maybe children really did know more about life than adults gave them credit for. When Jessica came back to say goodbye to them, Matthew was smiling. "Are you guys leaving?" she asked. "Yes, it's time for dinner." Matthew stood up, leaving payment on the table. "Jessica." "Yes. Thank you for keeping Chloe's drawing. I know it means a lot to her. It means a lot to me too." Jessica touched the pocket where she had kept the paper. "It's the first drawing someone has made for me in a long time." Chloe ran to hug Jessica before they left. "Don't forget to put it on the fridge." "I'll never forget," Jessica promised, kissing the top of the blonde head. On the way home, Chloe was quiet in the back seat for a few minutes before speaking. "Daddy." "Yes, Princess?" "Do you think Jessica really liked my drawing?" Matthew looked at his daughter in the rear-view mirror. "I'm sure she loved it." "Why?" "Because I want to make more drawings for her," Chloe said simply. "Drawings of the 3 of us together." Matthew felt his heart race. "Of the 3 of us." "Yeah, a happy family," Chloe smiled. "Just like in the movie we watched last Sunday." Matthew didn't answer right away, but when they got home, he realized that Chloe's idea didn't scare him as much as it should have. In fact, for the first time in a long time, the idea of family, of a new family, seemed possible. And it was all thanks to the pure, hopeful gaze of a 5-year-old girl who knew how to recognize happiness when she saw it. It was Saturday morning when Matthew called the diner. Jessica had given him the work number a few days earlier, in case he wanted to talk about the dinner they had planned. But when she answered, he didn't talk about dinner. "Jessica, it's Matthew." "Hi, is everything okay? Did something happen?" No. Everything's fine." He paused, watching Chloe in the backyard playing with her dolls, creating different voices for each one. "Actually, I was thinking, how about a walk today? Nothing fancy. Maybe the park, some ice cream. Chloe would love to have you with us." On the other end of the line, Jessica smiled. She could hear the nervousness in his voice, as if he were doing something brave. "I would love that too. What time? How about in an hour I can come pick you up?" "Perfect. I'll be ready." An hour later, Matthew parked in front of the small apartment building where Jessica lived. It was a simple, well-kept building downtown. She came down quickly, wearing dark jeans and a light cotton blouse, her blonde hair loose on her shoulders. She carried a small crossbody bag and had a genuine smile on her face. Chloe, who was in the back seat properly fastened in her car seat, clapped when she saw her. "Jessica, Jessica!" She waved through the window, almost jumping with excitement. "We're going to the park. Daddy said there are ducks there." "Hi, sweetie." Jessica got into the car, fastening her seatbelt before turning to greet Chloe. "You look beautiful today. I really like that pink shirt." "Thank you. Daddy said we can have ice cream if I behave well." "Is that right?" Jessica looked at Matthew with an amused smile. "What a generous father you have." "Just for today," Matthew laughed, starting the car and adjusting the rear-view mirror. "Tomorrow I go back to being the boring dad who makes her eat vegetables and go to bed on time." "I don't like broccoli," Chloe announced from the back. "But I like carrots and apples and ice cream." Jessica laughed. "Bon ice cream is the best vegetable of all." "Ice cream isn't a vegetable," Chloe protested, laughing. "It's dessert." Riverside Park was 15 minutes from home, in an area further from the city center. It was a large, well-maintained park with colorful playground areas, winding walking trails, and a small lake where families often fed the ducks and geese. Matthew had taken Chloe there a few times on weekends, but never with adult company. It was strange, but incredibly nice, to have Jessica by his side as they walked along the tree-lined paths. "What a beautiful place," Jessica commented, looking at the century-old trees that created natural shade over the paths. "For do you and Chloe come here often?" "Now and then on weekends," Matthew replied, watching Chloe run a few feet ahead, stopping to examine every flower and every interesting rock she found along the way. It's one of her favorite places. "Daddy! Jessica!" Chloe shouted, waving from a distance. "Can I go on the slide?" "Please." "You can, but don't go too far," Matthew said, watching his daughter dart towards the colorful playground equipment as soon as she got permission. They sat on a wooden bench near the playground, where they could keep an eye on Chloe without missing any of her adventures. It was a perfect day for a walk. Soft sun filtering through the leaves of the trees, a light breeze carrying the scent of cut grass, a pleasant temperature. Matthew couldn't remember the last time he had felt so relaxed. She has so much energy," Jessica commented, watching Chloe climb the slide for the 5th consecutive time, this time trying to go up the slippery part instead of using the ladder. "She's always been like that," Matthew smiled, remembering mornings when he would wake up to Chloe already jumping on the bed, ready to start another day of adventures. Sarah used to say she was born with extra batteries, that while other kids needed to recharge, Chloe came with an infinite battery. It was the first time Matthew had mentioned his wife so naturally in front of Jessica. He waited for the usual tension that always accompanied any mention of Sarah, the pang of guilt for talking about her with another woman. But the tension didn't come. Instead, he felt a strange tranquility, as if it were natural to share these memories. "She must have been an incredible mother," Jessica said softly, without any trace of discomfort or jealousy, just genuine understanding. "She was," Matthew nodded, watching Chloe make new friends on the playground. Chloe was the light of her life. They were very much alike. Same endless energy, same smile that lit up any room, same way of seeing the world as a place full of possibilities and adventures waiting to happen. Jessica remained quiet, allowing him to speak at his own pace, without pressing or trying to change the subject. "Daddy!" "Jessica!" Chloe shouted from the top of the tallest slide, her blonde hair shining in the sun. "Look how I'm going to come down. It's a new technique." She slid down on her stomach, with her arms outstretched as if she were a superhero flying, laughing loudly and contagiously when she reached the bottom. Matthew and Jessica applauded enthusiastically, and Chloe took an exaggerated bow, like an actress receiving applause, before running to the next piece of equipment. "She trusts you," Jessica observed, noticing how Chloe constantly looked in her father's direction, not out of insecurity, but to share every moment of fun. "I hope so," Matthew sighed, running a hand through his hair. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing everything right, if I'm being enough of a father and mother for her, if I'm not missing something important that a mother would know how to do. Matthew. Jessica turned to look at him directly, her green eyes serious and kind. Anyone with eyes can see that you are a wonderful father. Chloe is a happy, secure, unconditionally loved little girl. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens because she has a father who cares, who is present, who loves her more than life itself. Matthew felt his chest tighten with the sincerity in her voice. Thank you for saying that. Sometimes it's hard to be sure. They sat for a few minutes in comfortable silence, watching Chloe play with other children. She had found a girl her age with dark hair, and they were already inventing some elaborate game that involved a lot of running, laughing, and dramatic gestures that only made sense in the world of children. Jessica, Matthew said suddenly, his voice more serious. Can I tell you something? Something I don't tell many people. Of course! Jessica turned completely towards him, giving him her full attention. He took a deep breath, as if preparing to jump off a cliff. It was very hard to lose my wife, harder than any words can describe. The first few months after she died, I didn't know how to go on. I didn't know how to be a single father, how to explain to Chloe why her mother wasn't coming home anymore, how to wake up every day knowing she wouldn't be there. Jessica touched his arm gently, a simple but powerful gesture of support and understanding. The only reason I kept going was Chloe, he continued, his voice growing stronger. She needed me, so I couldn't give up. I couldn't let myself sink completely into sadness, but for a long time, I was just surviving, going through the motions of life without really living, doing what needed to be done but without feeling joy in anything. Matthew looked at Jessica, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her heart race. But meeting you, I feel like I can start over, that maybe it's possible to be happy again, not just function, that maybe I can have a full life again. Jessica felt her eyes well up with tears at Matthew's raw honesty, at the vulnerability he was showing by sharing something so intimate and painful. Matthew, she began, but was interrupted by Chloe, who came running up to them. Daddy, Jessica! Chloe arrived breathless and with her cheeks red from so much running and playing. Can I have ice cream now, please? I behaved super well. I even helped a girl who fell. Matthew cleared his throat, quickly trying to switch back to father mode after the intense conversation they were having. Of course, princess, you behaved perfectly. What flavor do you want? Chocolate. Always chocolate. With chocolate sauce on top. I think someone likes chocolate. Jessica laughed, discreetly wiping her eyes. They walked to the ice cream cart that was strategically positioned near the lake, where the flow of families was constant. Chloe ordered a double scoop of chocolate in a cone with sauce, which was almost bigger than her small head. Jessica ordered strawberry with rainbow sprinkles, and Matthew opted for plain vanilla. They found a bench in the shade of an old tree near the lake, where they could eat their ice cream while watching the ducks and geese swim lazily in the clear water. Some children were throwing breadcrumbs to the animals, who gathered hopefully near the bank. Look at that little duck. Chloe pointed to a small duckling that was swimming determinedly behind its mother, trying to keep up with the adults. He's just like me following Daddy at the supermarket. Jessica smiled, touched by the innocent comparison. He is. They always stick together, don't they? It's because they love each other, Chloe said with the crystal-clear logic of children, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Families do that. They stick together because they love each other and take care of each other. Matthew and Jessica exchanged glances, both deeply touched by Chloe's innocent but profound observation. Chloe is right, Jessica said softly, watching the family of ducks. Families stay together because they care for one another. Jessica. Chloe looked at her with genuine curiosity, carefully licking her ice cream before it melted. Where is your family? Why didn't you bring them on our walk? The question, asked with the typical frankness of children, caught Jessica completely by surprise. She looked at Matthew, who nodded encouragingly, his eyes saying it was okay, that she could be honest. Well, Jessica began carefully, searching for the right words to explain something so complex to a child. I lost my mom recently. She was sick for a while and then she died. She was the only family I had. Since then, I've been feeling very lonely." Chloe completely stopped licking her ice cream, her blue eyes widening as she processed the information. "Your mommy went to heaven too, just like my mommy." "Yes, she did," Jessica nodded, feeling her throat tighten. "Like my mommy that I don't really remember, but Daddy says she loved me very much. Just like your mommy." Chloe was quiet for a long moment, swinging her little legs on the bench and looking at the ducks in the lake. Matthew could almost see the thoughts organizing in her head. "It must be very, very sad to be alone," she said finally, her voice small but full of empathy. Jessica felt her throat tighten even more. "It is very sad sometimes." Matthew watched the conversation with his heart aching with emotion. He could see the genuine pain in Jessica's eyes, the same deep, familiar pain he knew so well. The pain of losing someone you love, of being left alone in the world. Without a second thought, he reached out and gently touched her hand, a simple but meaningful gesture of support and understanding. "You don't have to go through this alone," he said softly, his words filled with sincerity. "Not anymore. Not while we're here." Jessica looked at him, surprised by the deep tenderness in his voice, by the way he looked at her, as if she were precious. "Matthew." "Hey, Jessica." Chloe suddenly jumped off the bench with a determination that only children possess and stood directly in front of her. Without any warning or hesitation, she wrapped Jessica in a tight, long hug, melting ice cream and all. "I can be your family too." Chloe's words, spoken with such simplicity, genuine love, and absolute conviction, made Jessica start to cry. They weren't tears of sadness, but of something much more complex: relief, gratitude, love, hope. She hugged the little girl back, feeling something deep break and rebuild itself simultaneously in her chest. "Chloe," Jessica whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "It's true." Chloe pulled back a little, but kept her small hands on Jessica's shoulders, looking at her with all the seriousness a 5-year-old can muster. Families aren't just people who were born together or who live in the same house. They're people who love each other and take care of each other and want to be together forever. And I love you, Jessica, very, very much. Matthew watched the scene with his eyes completely filled with tears. His 5-year-old daughter had just articulated something he had been feeling but couldn't properly express. Jessica was no longer a stranger who had come into their lives by chance. She was becoming real family. "I love you too, Chloe," Jessica said with all the sincerity in the world, kissing the girl's soft forehead. "More than you can imagine." "And do you like my daddy?" Chloe asked with the direct curiosity typical of children, without any filter or embarrassment. Jessica looked at Matthew, who was watching them with an expression she had never seen before. There was love there, not just for his daughter, but something deeper and more directed at her. Something that made her heart race. "Yes," Jessica answered with complete honesty. "I like your daddy very much." "And you, Daddy?" Chloe turned to Matthew, her eyes shining with expectation. "Do you like Jessica?" Matthew laughed through the tears in his eyes, touched by the direct and pure way Chloe saw the world. "Yes, Princess, I like Jessica very much." "Very much indeed. So it's settled." Chloe clapped her hands, as if she had just solved all the complex problems of the adult world. "Now we're a real family, just like the ducklings over there." She pointed enthusiastically to the lake, where the family of ducks continued to swim together in perfect formation. The duckling always close and safe between its parents. Matthew and Jessica laughed together, both deeply moved and touched by Chloe's pure and crystal clear logic. Maybe it really was that simple in the end. Maybe love, real, genuine, transformative love, was exactly as Chloe had described it. People who genuinely care for each other, who consciously choose to be together, who form a family not out of obligation or social convention, but out of true love and deliberate choice. Can I finish my ice cream now?" Chloe asked casually, as if she hadn't just fundamentally changed the lives of 3 people with her childish wisdom. "You can, Princess," Matthew laughed, wiping his eyes. "You can finish your ice cream." And so, sitting on that bench under the comforting shade of a century-old tree, watching ducks swim peacefully while a 5-year-old girl ate chocolate ice cream, 3 people became a family. Matthew arrived at the diner on Tuesday morning, as had become his habit in recent weeks, but something was different. The place seemed slower than usual, and when he looked through the window, he saw Jessica sitting alone at a back table, her shoulders slumped in a way he had never seen before. He quickly went inside and walked over to her. It was only when he got closer that he realized Jessica was crying, not the dramatic crying from movies, but silent tears streaming down her face as she stared intently at a paper in her hands. Jessica. He sat in the chair across from her. What happened? She looked up, quickly trying to wipe the tears with the back of her hand. Matthew, you shouldn't be here. I thought you only came later. Jessica, what's going on? He leaned forward, worried about her state. There was a pallor to her face that alarmed him. Are you okay? Jessica laughed bitterly, shaking the paper in her hands. I'm great. I've just been evicted. What? Matthew felt his stomach clench. What do you mean, evicted? 2 months of overdue rent. Jessica folded the paper, clearly an eviction notice, and put it in her pocket. I have 5 days to leave the apartment. Matthew was silent for a moment, processing the information. Jessica, why didn't you tell me you were having financial trouble? Because it's not your problem, she said quickly, but her voice trembled. I'll figure something out. I always do. Where are you going to go? Jessica fell silent, and Matthew realized from the look on her face that she had no answer to that question. Jessica, he said softly, talk to me. What happened? She took a deep breath, as if preparing to admit something very difficult. I spent everything on my mother's treatment. When she got sick, I tried everything. Private doctors, experimental treatments, expensive medicines that the insurance plan wouldn't cover. Her voice grew quieter. I got buried in debt. Matthew felt his heart ache. Jessica, I thought that after she died I could get back on my feet, work more hours, pay everything off slowly. Jessica wiped away more tears that had started to fall, but the salary here barely covers the basic needs, and the debts just grow with the interest. Why didn't you tell me this before? Matthew asked, his voice firm but full of tenderness. Jessica looked at him directly, her green eyes shining with unshed tears. I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for me. Matthew reached out and took her hand, holding it firmly. Jessica, listen to what I'm about to tell you. You are not going through this alone. Matthew, I can't. Come live with us, he said without hesitation. The house is too big for just me and Chloe. There's an extra room I never use. The kitchen is spacious and Chloe would love to have you around all the time. Jessica blinked, surprised. Matthew, I can't accept that. It's too much. It's the right thing to do, he interrupted. Jessica, you two are my family now. Family takes care of each other. But I can't contribute much financially right now. It doesn't matter. We'll figure it out together. Matthew squeezed her hand. The important thing is for you to have a safe roof over your head. We'll figure out the rest later. At that moment, Chloe ran into the diner. It was her school lunch break, and Matthew had promised to pick her up so they could eat together. Jessica, Chloe ran to the table, but stopped when she saw the tears in the woman's eyes. Why are you sad? Matthew looked at Jessica, who nodded slightly. Jessica is going through a tough time, Princess, Matthew explained. And I've invited her to come live with us for a while. Chloe's eyes widened with pure joy. Really? Jessica is going to live at our house? If she wants to, Matthew said, looking at Jessica. Yes, come live with us. Chloe jumped with excitement. You can sleep in the room with the blue curtains, and we can make breakfast together. And you can help me brush my teeth. Jessica laughed through her tears, touched by the girl's genuine excitement. She looked at Matthew, who was watching her expectantly. Are you sure? She asked. Absolutely, Matthew replied without hesitation. Jessica closed her eyes for a moment, feeling an immense sense of relief. Then, yes, I accept. Thank you, Chloe shouted with joy and threw herself into Jessica's arms. Yay, now you're going to live with us forever. Over the weekend, Matthew borrowed a small pickup truck from a friend at work and went to help Jessica move. She had few things, some clothes, books, personal items that easily fit in the back of the truck. Chloe insisted on coming along to supervise the move. "Is this your teddy bear?" Chloe asked, picking up a small, worn-out teddy bear from a box. "It was my mother's when she was little," Jessica explained. "She gave it to me when I was your age. It's so cute." Chloe hugged the teddy bear. "It can stay in my room if you want." "How about it stays in Jessica's room?" Matthew suggested. "That way she'll feel more at home." When they arrived at Matthew's house, Chloe immediately took on the role of tour guide. "Come on, Jessica. Let me show you everything." She pulled Jessica by the hand. "This is the living room. This is where we watch TV. The kitchen is over there. Daddy makes pancakes on Sundays. And up here," they went up the stairs, Chloe chattering excitedly about each room. "This is my room." Chloe opened the door to a room painted light pink, with a small bed covered in stuffed animals. "Look at all my drawings." The walls were covered with children's drawings, houses with crooked chimneys, smiling suns, colorful flowers, stick-figure families. "They're beautiful, Chloe," Jessica said, examining each one carefully. "You're an artist, and this is your room." Chloe opened the door to the room next door. It was a simple but cozy room, with a twin bed, a dresser, and a window overlooking the backyard. Matthew had put clean sheets on the bed and left some folded towels on top. "It's perfect," Jessica said, genuinely moved. "Thank you." "The bathroom is over there," Chloe pointed down the hall. "And Daddy's room is that one, but the door is always closed because he says he needs his privacy." Matthew laughed, slightly embarrassed. "Chloe, but now you can knock on the door if you need anything," Chloe continued, ignoring her father. "Daddy doesn't bite." In the first few days, Jessica felt like a guest. She was careful not to make noise early in the morning, asked before using anything in the kitchen, and kept her belongings organized so as not to get in the way. But Chloe had other plans. "Jessica!" She appeared in the room one Thursday morning, still in her pajamas. "Come have breakfast." Daddy is making scrambled eggs." In the kitchen, Matthew was at the stove, wearing the apron Chloe had given him for Father's Day, blue with the phrase, "World's Best Dad," embroidered on it. "Good morning," he smiled at Jessica. "Did you sleep well?" "Very well, thank you." "Sit here next to me." Chloe patted the chair beside hers. "Do you like scrambled eggs?" "And toast. Daddy makes the best toast in the world." During breakfast, Chloe chatted about her plans for the day, about her art class at school, about the new drawing she wanted to make. Matthew joined the conversation, asking questions and laughing at his daughter's observations. Jessica found herself laughing too, naturally participating in the family dynamic. "Jessica, can you help me with my homework today?" Chloe asked. "It's about animals, and you know a lot of things." "Of course, I'd be happy to." That afternoon, they sat at the kitchen table with Chloe's books spread out. The homework was about animal habitats, and Jessica helped Chloe draw different environments: forests, oceans, deserts. "You're very good at explaining things," Chloe commented, carefully coloring a fish. "Better than Daddy." "Hey," Matthew protested from the living room, where he was reading some work reports. "It's true, Daddy. You're good at a lot of things, but Jessica is better at homework." Jessica laughed. "Your dad is great at a lot of things I don't know how to do." "Like what?" "Fixing broken things, cooking perfect pancakes, making you feel safe." Matthew appeared at the kitchen door, touched by the comment. That night, at bedtime, Chloe appeared in Jessica's room. "Can you tell me a story?" she asked shyly. "Daddy always does, but sometimes he's tired." "Of course." Jessica sat on Chloe's bed. "What kind of story do you like?" "Stories about brave princesses." Chloe snuggled under the covers. "Not the ones who wait for princes, the ones who solve their own problems." Jessica smiled. "I know a story about a princess who saved a dragon." "A dragon?" "But princesses usually fight dragons. This princess was different. She found out the dragon wasn't mean, just very lonely." As she told the story, Jessica saw Matthew standing in the doorway, listening. He smiled at her, a smile full of gratitude and something more. At the end of the first week, Jessica was helping Chloe organize her toys when the girl asked, "Jessica, are you happy living here?" Jessica stopped what she was doing and looked at Chloe. Very happy. Why? Because you seem different. More bright. Chloe thought for a moment. Just like me when you came to live here. Brighter on the inside. Jessica felt her eyes well up with tears. That's how I feel. Bright on the inside. It's because now you have a real family, Chloe said with the simplicity of children. Families make people shine. That night, as they prepared dinner together, Matthew commented, Chloe has been different since you moved in. Different how? Happier. More complete. He paused, stirring the sauce. And so am I. Jessica looked at him, feeling her heart race. Matthew, thank you for agreeing to move in, he said simply. This house needed you. Jessica smiled, watching Chloe at the table drawing while waiting for dinner to be ready. The scene was so natural, so domestic, so right. Thank you for giving me a home, she replied. I didn't know how much I needed one until I had one again. Later that night, after Chloe had fallen asleep and Matthew was watching TV in the living room, Jessica found herself standing at the kitchen window, looking out at the moonlit backyard. For the first time in months, she felt at peace. She felt like she belonged somewhere, that she had a purpose, that there were people who cared about her. Can't sleep. Matthew appeared in the kitchen, getting a glass of water. Just appreciating, Jessica smiled. It's strange how quickly a place can start to feel like home. It is. Matthew approached the window, standing beside her. Jessica. Yes, I want you to know this isn't charity. You being here, it makes sense. For me and for Chloe. Jessica turned to look at him. It makes sense to me too. A lot of sense. They stood in silence for a few minutes, side by side in the kitchen, watching the quiet night. I think Chloe was right, Jessica said finally. About what? About families making people shine on the inside, Matthew smiled. She's usually right about these things. Usually? Always, he corrected, and they both laughed. Jessica knew there were still challenges ahead, debts to resolve, a whole life to rebuild. But for the first time since her mother had died, she had hope. She had a family. She had a home, and that made all the difference in the world. There was something different in the air that Thursday night. Jessica had noticed it during dinner, in the way Matthew looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, something in his expression and intensity that wasn't there before, as if he were making an important decision. Chloe had fallen asleep earlier than usual, exhausted after a busy day at school. She had been in a play, playing a flower that grew in the garden, and was still thrilled about the applause she had received. She'd insisted that Jessica tell her a story about a fairy who taught children to fly and had dozed off in the middle of the narrative, still clutching the teddy bear her mother had left her. She's fast asleep, Jessica said softly when she returned to the living room, where Matthew was pretending to watch television. Good. She needs to rest. He turned off the TV and turned to her, placing the remote on the coffee table. Jessica, do you have a minute? I wanted to talk to you about something. Something in his tone made her heart race. It was a more serious tone, but also more affectionate. Of course. Is everything okay? More than okay, Matthew smiled, but there was nervousness in his eyes. Sit here with me. Jessica sat on the sofa next to him, leaving a respectful space between them. In the past few weeks, they had developed a careful intimacy, sharing meals, taking care of Chloe together, talking about their day. But they always maintained a safe distance, as if they both knew something was growing between them but didn't want to rush it. Jessica, Matthew turned to look at her directly, his eyes meeting hers. I wanted to talk to you about us. Us, Jessica repeated, feeling her cheeks flush. Yes, the three of us. You, me, Chloe. He paused, running a hand through his hair nervously. These last few weeks, have been the best I've had in a long time. And it's not just because you're helping with Chloe, or because it's nice to have adult company in the house. Jessica remained quiet, letting him find the words. It's you, Matthew continued, his voice becoming steadier. The way you laugh at Chloe's jokes, even the completely unfunny ones. How you worry when she gets a cold, checking her temperature during the night. how you leave little surprises for her to find. A drawing stuck to the bathroom mirror, an extra cookie in her lunchbox. Jessica smiled, remembering all these little things she did instinctively. She deserves all the little joys in the world. And with me, Matthew hesitated for a moment, you listen when I talk about my projects at work, even when they're boring. You make me laugh at things I had forgotten about. You make me feel interesting again. Matthew paused, took a deep breath. You make me remember who I was before I became just a widowed father trying to survive. Jessica felt her eyes well up with tears at the honesty in his voice. Matthew. He reached out and gently touched her face, his thumb wiping away a tear that had started to fall. We could try to get to know each other better. To try to be a family, if you want that too. The question hung in the air between them, filled with hope and vulnerability. Jessica looked into Matthew's eyes and saw everything he hadn't said, the fear of taking a risk again, the hope that she felt the same way. I do, she said, her voice thick with emotion, more than anything in the world. But let's take it slow, calmly. I want it to be real. I want it to be right for all of us, especially for Chloe. Matthew smiled, and Jessica saw relief and happiness spread across his face. Slow, with all the calm in the world, he leaned in and kissed her forehead softly, a tender gesture full of promise. Jessica closed her eyes, feeling safe and loved. So are we? A couple now, she asked shyly. We're a family that's learning to be a family, Matthew replied. And part of that means that, yes, we are a couple. In the following days, the change in the house was almost palpable. Not that much had changed externally. They still slept in separate rooms, still shared household chores, still took turns taking Chloe to school. But there was something new in the air, a lightness that wasn't there before. Matthew smiled more. Not just the polite smiles he gave when necessary, but genuine smiles that started in his eyes and spread across his entire face. Jessica laughed louder, without worrying about being discreet. And Chloe, always perceptive to changes, seemed to blossom in the new energy of the house. Daddy's singing in the shower again, she commented one Saturday morning while Jessica was making pancakes in the kitchen. Is he now? Jessica laughed, stirring the batter carefully. And what do you think about that? I think it's good. He was sad for a long time. Chloe climbed onto a chair to get taller. Now he's happy like I get when I get ice cream. And are you happy too? Very happy. Chloe nodded vigorously. You know why? Why? Because now our house feels like a real house, with laughter and people liking each other and talking during dinner, and no one is sad alone anymore. Jessica stopped stirring the batter for a moment, touched by the girl's observation. Chloe, can I ask you something important? You can. How do you feel about me and your dad? Liking each other in a special way? Chloe thought for a moment, biting her lip as she always did when she was reflecting. It's like when I really like two people and they also like each other, she said finally. Everyone gets happier. It's simple math. Jessica laughed out loud. Simple math? Yeah. 1 + 1 is usually 2. But when people really like each other, 1 + 1 makes 3 because love shows up too. Before Jessica could respond, Matthew came downstairs, his hair still damp from his shower, whistling softly. Good morning, my favorite girls. He kissed the top of Chloe's head and then, hesitantly but determined, gently kissed Jessica's cheek. It was a simple, cool domestic gesture, but it made Jessica's heart race. Pancakes! Chloe shouted excitedly. Jessica is making pancakes just like you do on Sundays. The best pancakes in the world, Matthew said, getting a cup of coffee. How do you know they're the best? You haven't even tried them yet, Jessica teased. That's because everything you do turns out better, he replied simply. The sentence was said casually, but Jessica felt her cheeks warm up. These small moments of flirting, of mutual acknowledgement, were becoming more frequent. That afternoon, while Jessica was folding clothes in the living room and Matthew was fixing a leak under the kitchen sink, Chloe appeared in the room with a sheet of paper and her box of crayons. I'm making a new drawing, she announced solemnly, settling down at the coffee table. What's it of? Jessica asked, carefully folding one of Matthew's shirts. It's a surprise. But I can tell you it's about our family, Chloe said, already choosing the first crayon. You have to be patient to see it. Matthew appeared at the kitchen door, drying his hands on a towel. Can I take a look? It's not ready yet. Chloe protected the paper with her small body. You have to wait until it's perfect. They laughed and let her work in peace. For over an hour, Chloe colored with total dedication, only stopping to ask for opinions on colors. Jessica, do you think the sun should be plain yellow or yellow with orange? Or to show small details, Daddy, come see how beautiful this tree turned out. Finally, she stood up from the table, holding the paper carefully. Done, she announced proudly. Now you can look, but you have to come together. Jessica and Matthew approached side by side. The drawing showed a colorful and cheerful little house, light blue walls, a bright red roof, a door as yellow as the sun, windows with little curtains drawn in. Around the house, Chloe had drawn green trees with full canopies, flowers of all colors scattered on the ground, and a huge smiling sun in the top right corner of the paper. But what stood out the most was the giant red heart drawn above the house, floating in the air as if it were a special cloud. How beautiful, Chloe, Jessica exclaimed, genuinely impressed. It's wonderful. Tell us about the drawing. This is our house, Chloe pointed proudly to the little house. And these are all the trees in our backyard, and the flowers that grow in the spring, and the sun is always happy because our house is a place where everyone smiles. And the heart? Matthew asked, touched by the image. Oh, that's the most important part of all, Chloe beamed. The heart is all the love that lives in our house. Usually, love is invisible, but I can draw it because I can feel it all the time here. Jessica felt her eyes well up with tears at the girl's pure explanation. Unable to contain herself, she knelt and hugged Chloe tightly. And it's the most beautiful drawing I've ever seen in my life, she whispered emotionally. Matthew came closer and placed a hand on Jessica's shoulder, squeezing gently. When she looked up at him over Chloe's head, she saw that his eyes were shining too. Can I hang it on the fridge? Chloe asked hopefully. Out in the most special place. Absolutely, Jessica said, still moved. Highest place of honor. As Chloe ran to the kitchen to stick her drawing on the fridge, Matthew and Jessica remained in the living room, still touched by the simplicity of what the girl had created. She's right, Matthew said softly, taking Jessica's hand. What about love being invisible but us being able to feel it? She is, Jessica agreed, looking into his eyes. I can feel it too, all the time. They looked at each other for a long moment, and Matthew intertwined his fingers with hers. Done, Chloe shouted from the kitchen, satisfied. The heart is on the fridge for everyone to see. She ran back into the living room, stopping in front of the two adults holding hands, observing them with satisfaction. Now I have everything I ever wanted, she said, with the tranquility of someone who has achieved an important goal. For happiness at home. Jessica knelt to be at the girl's eye level, without letting go of Matthew's hand. And we have you, the wisest person we know. I know, Chloe shrugged, as if it were obvious. That's why I knew from the beginning that you two would fall in love. Matthew laughed, enchanted. How did you know? Because you both had the same kind of sadness when you met, and when people with the same kind of sadness meet and decide to be happy together, it always works out. Always? Jessica asked. Always, Chloe nodded with conviction. It's proven science. That night, after Chloe had fallen peacefully asleep, Jessica and Matthew sat on the sofa, closer than before, but in no hurry. Just the tranquility of two adults who had decided to build something beautiful together. Thank you, Matthew said suddenly. For what? For agreeing to try. For believing that it was possible to start over. Jessica smiled and squeezing his hand. Thank you for asking, for being brave enough to risk it again. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, listening to the nightly sounds of the house, the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the clock on the wall, Chloe's soft breathing from upstairs. Matthew, Jessica said finally. Yes. I think Chloe is right about the math of love. Matthew chuckled softly. 1 + 1 = 3. 1 + 1 = a complete family. They smiled at each other, and Matthew gently kissed Jessica's hand. Outside, the night was calm and starry. Inside the house, 3 hearts beat in sync. Not perfectly synchronized, but harmoniously connected. The pain had not disappeared completely. It probably never would entirely, but it had been transformed into something new, something that allowed room for joy, for renewed hope, for true love. It was not just a house with walls and a roof. It was a true home, born from pain, courage, and a love that knew how to start again. A home where a wise 5-year-old girl had taught 2 wounded adults that the most beautiful families are the ones we choose to build, not just the ones we are born into. A home where the invisible love from a child's drawing had become as real as the walls that protected them. And in the red heart stuck to the refrigerator, 3 people had found not only each other, but a new way to be completely happy. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.